Hey, this is Peggy with Easy Peasy Machine Embroidery, and today I am in MySewNet Platinum, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can use the digitizing feature to make your own needle organizers. One of these needle organizers is a basic pincushion that you can set up to use whatever needles that you use most frequently. I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sections in my grid and different sizes for the needles that I use most frequently. And here is another style that you could put into a booklet type form. Okay, so we can start out with a blank canvas. And I am going to use the 120 by 120 for the pincushion type needle organizer. I'm going to leave it at the natural position. And I am going to go into the Create module, the Create tab, and I'm going to go into digitizing. And I'm going to hit cancel here. And I'm going to go into view. And I'm going to say 0.25. Hold down the shift key and the quote sign. And that is going to put my scale at approximately 1/4 inch squares. And then I'm going to go into the Point Create tab. And here is where I'm going to get rid of my pattern fill. I do not want a satin line at this point. We're just going to I'm going to do a triple stitch, I believe. Actually, let's do a double stitch. And we're going to do create area or line. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6. 1. I'm going to go right over here and make a line. And I'm going to go make a second line. Whoops. I'm going to get rid of that one. So I'm going to go over to the film strip and right click and hit delete. Go back up here and grab my line maker. Right click and it forms the stitches. Right click. Right click. And if you need to adjust these lines later, you can always go back and adjust them. And remember, this is some of these will have, 4 basic lines because you only use 4 needles. Some will have 10 different lines because you'll have 10 different needles that you use. And then I'm going to give myself enough room so I can type some words in there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm basically going to make about 5 different grids. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to go back over here, and I'm going to make one more. The important thing to remember here is that when you are making these lines, the machine is going to stitch it out exactly as you created it. So we're going to have a big jump from here over to here. I probably should have done this line first. So there's my basic grid. All I have to do now is I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to change the double stitch to a satin stitch, and I'm going to go back to the Create Liner area, and I'm going to go around this entire square. Oops! Guess what? I need to hold down the Shift key when I am doing these corners, because remember, to get the corner right, you need to hold that Shift key down so it makes a clear and concise angle. Alright, so right click, there is my grid, and I would then probably, just because I know it's probably going to tell me that the design is too big for the hoop, so I'm going to say in the Home tab, we're going to go to Modify the Block and to scale it to fit the hoop. And it made it just a little bit smaller. And lastly, get rid of this thing, move it someplace else. Lastly, I'm going to do a Save As, and notice that this is going to be an EDO file. So I'm going to say New Folder, and say Sewing Organizer, double click inside, and I'll say Sewing Org in that folder. So that's going to keep my file exactly as it is. So I can still go back and say, ooh, I want to change this line. So I probably should have done that before I added. Okay, and that is the double stitch, except this thing is covering it up. So when you make your grid, make sure you've got things the way you want to. You can always get rid of this and say delete. And now I can see my lines, and I just click on the line, and this one needs to be just a little bit longer. And then I can go back into the Quick Create tab, grab that satin line, point create, make sure it's a satin line, and again, I'm just gonna drop my points, holding down that Shift key. And move these two so they're overlapping. There we go again. Go back to the Home key, Modify, Scale to Fit, File, Save As, and that gives me that EDO file. So say yes there. Then I say Finish, and that brings me back into the regular embroidery screen. And now all I would have to do is add my lettering. So I probably want to find a lettering that is rather small. So I'm going to go into the Font Manager, which is right up here. We are going to say that I want lettering that is 10 millimeters, give or take 5 millimeters. And here I can look at these and see what size they are, see what they look like. There's the micro. I think I used, let's see, Arial. I'm going to choose Arial. So 8 to 14 Arial, and there we go. I can say embroidery, 8 millimeters. I like to set my gap so that I know my letters aren't going to overlap each other. This looks really big, so I may even need to go smaller. So I am going to do this again. I'm going to go Font Manager, and I want something like this now. I'm going to capitalize that E, set my gap down a little bit, and there we go. So that is rather small. We can make that bigger. So right click over it, make sure that the font is boxed in. Edit lettering, and let's go up to about an 8 and see what that looks like. That's too big. Go back, right click, and go back into edit lettering, and 5. And you can also scooch this just a little bit. The other thing I'm going to say here is that let's say embroideries are generally 90s. And I think I have somehow... Alright, we are going to do this. So we're going to do an 80, and we're going to bump it up to 5, apply it, and if you can't grab that little directional tool, then you're probably going to want to do a zoom in to get it and move it up. There's my 80. And I can also do a copy and a paste and just move that over here. Right click, edit lettering, and change it to 90. And if I decided that I wanted to do a 75 in here, or 70 or 60, I would do so accordingly. But also make sure that you're thinking about how the embroidery is going to stitch out. So you don't want to start one embroidery font here and then put a ballpoint down here and then go back up here and do something else and then say over here and do something else. You don't want to do that because you're going to have so many jumps. But this is a fast and easy way to create like a pincushion, and specifically customized to the needles that you use. The other thing I'm going to say here is when you're stitching this out, especially with the lettering, you want to use the bobbin thread to do this because bobbin thread is thinner and it will look nicer, believe me. Okay, so we're going to move on to the other style. And this style, I am going to do the same basic thing. I am going into the digitizing. So basically, we could have started out, where is it? Right here, and just open it up that way. And we are in digitizing now. So I am not in digitizing. That's because I didn't start out fresh. Okay. So again, we're going to hit cancel here. I am going to use the view, and I'm going to set my grid at 0.5. So my grid is a 1/2 inch. And I better put the quotation mark there. Alright, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, this is my dividing line, and I'm going to go into point create again. I'm going to turn off pattern fill. I'm going to start out with just a double stitch line and go ahead and get my create liner area. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here. Whoops, I need to slide you over a little bit and go over about here and here. Straighten you out. Overlap these two. Remember, if you're resizing, you need to hold that. And oh heck, I'm just going to use those lines because it's just easier to straighten things out. Okay. Alright, so that would be the very top where I'm going to put my style of needle. And then I'm going to right click. And then I'm going to come down here and whoops, I need to hold that shift key down. And I can just leave that as is, and that would move this over here again, straighten things out, straighten things out here. Okay, and that's my second. And then we're going to grab this again, and we're going to say line here, line here. Okay, and actually my grid should have been a whole lot smaller. I'm going to go change that right now. And we're going to say 0.25 inch. And that would make it a whole lot easier to line things up. Alright, so, and then I'm going to go do the same thing down here. Oops, I think I made a line I didn't want to. Right click over on the film strip, hit delete. Okay, there's my double stitch. Here's this. And we're going to go down here and start making another one. And point create. Same thing. Go down here. This way. This way. This way. See how much easier it is when you set the grid the right way? Remember, you can go back and change your grids afterwards. And I'm going to right click, and I'm going to go up here and say delete. And delete. And delete. And delete. And I'm going to start up here again, and I'm going to try this all over. Create line. Down here to here. To here. Move it over to overlap it. Okay, so we got our two grids there. And we're going to click here. Oops, I forgot something. Okay. And now we're going to click here. Remember, when you're adding things, it's going to add it underneath the section that is highlighted. Straight across. That's where I'm going to put my wording. Right click. Okay. And then we're going to go, I'm going to start here, just because I don't want quite as big a jump. And then I'm going to go here and here. Okay. And so now I can say embroidery up here. I can put 75 and 90. I can put quilting down here. I can add the 75 and 90 here. And I can also highlight everything, and I'm going to say group it. And I can do a copy. And then I'm going to add a color change. And again, remember, when you add a color change, it's going to be underneath the last part of the film strip that you have highlighted. And then I am going to do a paste. And I'm going to move that right over here. Perfect. And then I could type my denim, and we could put a little design here in blocks that aren't used. Whatever you want to do, you can just, bottom here you'd have 90, 100, and 110 with a design here, your wording up here, denim, and you're good to go. So that's how you would do that. This would be the fold, and you could save this section. That's all done. So File, Save As, and we're going to say Sewing Book, and do that. And then we're going to do an export. And I'm going to just see if I can find my folder that I was keeping that in and say export. And then I can bring this back up and say insert from my desktop. And sewing book. Exported. There we go. Okay, perfect. And now I can do my lettering. So 80. And remember, when you can't grab that little directional tool, just zoom in, move it up to almost where you need it. $80, copy it, paste it, right click, edit lettering, change it to 90, we're good to go there. We could say embroidery up there, apply it. And again, it is down here, so move that up there. You can go over into super designs and say, let's see if sew will come up. Yep, you can go get a super design. Whoops, move this over here. Shrink it up. There you go. Stitch that out there on felt or something, and now you've got a place to put your used needle. Okay, hope you understood this and enjoyed it and got some ideas. Okay, thanks. Remember to like and subscribe to my videos. Thank you. Bye-bye.